I can recall a time when I was about 5 or 6. I was probably 6. And I wanted to ask my dad something. What it was specifically, I don't know. But I was nervous about asking. And so I decided, well, I'll go ahead and count down from 10 in my head. And when I get done, I'll ask him. I'll just do it. And I had been sort of psyching myself up to even get to this point. It already took several minutes, maybe even half an hour to even convince myself to do this. And finally, I start counting down from 10. I probably get to about 5 or 6, and I give up. I stop. I don't ask. And I don't even know if I ever asked, to be honest. And it was probably something very simple, like, can I have some ice cream? Or can I stay up 30 minutes late? Something along those lines. A simple favor that's not really something that is one should feel anxious about. And yet, that's exactly what I was. I was anxious. I was anxious about getting something for me. You see, I grew up in a household where favors weren't a thing. Where if you did anything outside of what was expected of you, you didn't just get in trouble for it, you probably got whooped for it too. And that is not acceptable. I have been told by many people who are older than me, oh, well, I got whooped for the dumbest fucking things ever and I turned out to be just fine. No, you didn't. You're a horrible person and you don't realize it. You're unstable. You think everything's great because you have enough money, because you are so hyper competitive that you'll push everybody down below you just so you can get the most money, and then you don't even give a damn about the people who are around you. You don't care about their emotions, you don't care about who they are as a person, you care about you. And yes, we're all selfish, and I know I'm selfish, and I think part of that breeds extreme selfishness. Because when you are presented with the idea that you are not valuable, that the things that you want and like and want to do are not worth the effort, and as such, in doing so, you're actually punished for them, that will breed selfishness. It's the pendulum effect. You tell a kid not to do something, what do? They go do the thing. It's reverse psychology, but it's the reverse psychology not being used properly. I grew up like that most of my life, fearing anything that I might deserve. I mean, just earlier today, last night, although jokingly, looking at it, if you just, via Poe's law, when you can't understand you don't know if it's serious or satire or what have you on the internet because it's just words. I was basically asking, well, if I want to make out with a woman, does that make me a horrible person? No, obviously not. If I said that in a joking tone that I had in my head at the time, then everybody would probably have laughed and thought it was funny. But the thing is I was somewhat serious. Because aren't we always? When we're sarcastic? We may not be as serious as, well now, does making out with a woman make me a horrible person? You may not necessarily think that you're a horrible person in the most extreme variant of what horribleness is. But I've had that mentality most of my life. I have not been encouraged to seek the things that I want. I've been encouraged to seek the things that what other people want for me. I have been discouraged from seeking the things that I want for myself. And even now, when people tell me good things, I don't believe them when they're telling them about me. Because I don't see it. I don't know. There's nothing I got going. There's no basis. I have no metric to work on. And so it fucks with my self-esteem. It makes me insecure, and it makes me anxious about just the stupidest shit. I'm dumb when it comes to women. I'm dumb when it comes to success. I am a dumb person in this world. I don't like it, and I don't know how to change it. I am figuring it out somehow, I think. For all I know, in the next couple of months, everything will just be back to what it usually is, which is lost and unsure and never figuring anything the fuck out. At fucking 34. Thanks, parents. I have learned that giving up is easier. That giving up works. Oh, sure, it doesn't have the best outcome. Not by any means. Living on the streets for 2.5 years, that's not a great outcome. I learned something from it. I grew as a person. But that doesn't pay the bills. It doesn't put food on the table. I had to be selfish when I was on the streets. Had to be. Because if I wasn't, I would stay longer. But I had to be selfish in a smart way. It's the sort of street smarts thing, I guess. And in a way, some of that still exists, in addition to all the other crap that occurred that has effectively programmed the majority of who I am, that I'm trying to reverse the programming. Just the other day, for instance, I informed a student that I was attracted to her. Initially, I questioned her. I was like, I think you're attracted to me, but I'm not sure. Is that the case? She's like, no. And I'm like, okay. Had a little conversation. It's basically respect, and she understands me as a person, which is great. And she found that to be attractive. She even told me that. However, we ended up working together in a group, and she didn't seem stoked about it. Now, I was obviously happy because I already knew. But I was also told not to say anything. I was supposed to act surprised. Well, that didn't work out very well. Never does it. So at one point I broke it. I was like, what? Here's the truth. Reality is I was supposed to work with so-and-so. I didn't want to work with so-and-so. So I said, can you put me with somebody else that maybe is on my list? And I was like, sort of influencing the decisions, like, hey, if you let me work with so-and-so, that would be great. Well, she doesn't have you on her list. Okay, well, that's cool. If that doesn't work out, I really would like to work with her. If I could work with the other people in the group too, that'd be great too. And so she ends up, switching a couple people around, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's kind of cool. But there's something, and I'm thinking about it now. And there was definitely something kind of in the back of my mind thinking maybe that wasn't a good idea. But it wasn't strong. It wasn't present in the sense of what presence really is, in that it's obvious. So it just kind of sat there. And I was excited, and I was like, let's hope this works out, and hope we get a good scene, and we can work this scene out really well, blah, blah, blah. I tell her about it. She's not happy with that at all. She even says she's kind of angry about that fact. And I'm like, well, why angry? She's like, well, she doesn't really know, which is reasonable. One doesn't always know why they have their emotional states. Maybe I do because I'm always in my head and I never let the emotional things happen, but that's just me. So I'm like, well, if this really is uncomfortable for you, if this is not something that you want to do, by all means, go tell the instructor. I'm sure we can figure something out, because I'm not unreasonable. I'm not going to make somebody work with me if they don't want to fucking work with me. Especially if because of me. And I didn't know at the time exactly why. I understood to a degree that she'd be upset because, well, honestly, I don't really know. I said it, I felt like I understood, but I didn't know logically. I guess so in a sense, it was an emotional understanding. Maybe I empathized for a fucking change, didn't even realize it, which is funny. So, after about a day of brooding on this and feeling shitty, I'm like, well, maybe it's because I was selfish. Maybe it's because I put this influence in there, and I didn't think of what she wanted. I didn't think of how she would feel about the situation. And that's true. That's exactly what happened now. Whether or not well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I think or feel about the situation. That is effectively the truth of it. I, A, did not consider her emotional attachment to the people that were on her list. I didn't consider whether or not she had me on the list, even though I was told. It's like, well, okay, I mean, I was like a little kid who excited about wanting to work with the girl he's attracted to. That's really what it boiled down to. It wasn't maliciousness. It wasn't forcefulness. It wasn't like, hey, you need to make me work with this person because I think would be great. You do it now. Do it. Do it, professor. Because that woman would not listen to me at all if I did that. Now, did I manipulate her with the intent to... Yes. Yes, I did. The fact that I succeeded is surprising to me because I don't usually get what I want. And I still didn't get what I want anyway, because it didn't work. So trying to manipulate people to get what you want doesn't fucking work. Well, maybe it does, it just depends on how you look at it, I guess. If I had never said anything and we just ran the thing, but she wasn't feeling the whole scene, she wasn't feeling the whole situation. She started, and I could sense it. There was something wrong, and she didn't want to do it anymore. And that's when I'm like, well, fuck it. Let's open the damn can of worms, get this shit over with. And honestly, it's good that it happened. It's good that we didn't persist. It's good because now I'm working with somebody who was on my list. Granted, I'm not really working with him. I've got to do all this stuff myself because he's working with somebody else. And then on top of it, she's working with somebody who's on her list, and I'm doing a scene that I want to do, not one that is a little too remnant of reality. So ultimately it works out. I get to play a stupid ass, fun, comedic role that I didn't get to play last time. I don't know what she's doing, and I feel better for it all. So, in a way, me doing what I did got me where I wanted to be, but the process sucked. And it compromised the relationships that we're building. At this point, if she decides that she no longer wants to have anything to do with me, she wants to unfriend me on Facebook, whatever, that's fine. That actually happened the other day with another classmate. I was talking to her about a guy that we know, and I was like, I think he might find you attractive. I'm not sure though. And she blows up. She's like, oh my God. And she's like super attracted to him and everything. And I'm like, okay, well, you need to tell him. That was like 2 weeks ago. And I wasn't noticing whether or not there was something going on, and I'm like, have you told him yet? She's like, no. It's like, why the fuck don't you want to tell him? I mean, I understand, yes, you don't want to tell the person because you don't want rejection. So maybe it has something to do with the post that I made a while back. Dopamine is a hell of a drug. This is my own personal theory. It has no science. I have done no research. I'm sure there's science somewhere, but I haven't read it. So in other words, there may be science. I don't know where it is. I'm just coming with this shit off the top of my head because I think it's fantastic just to think about. But when you're infatuated with somebody, you get dopamine just rush. You get it in your brain. And looking back on my life, it makes sense because the circumstances surrounding fawning over somebody was far more rewarding, and in some cases, than actually being in the relationship with somebody. Because it was a tease, and it's like, now I understand why the tease exists. Because it's exciting, you know? So there may be some legitimate neurotransmission going on. I mean, there obviously is to some degree, but maybe it's just a bunch of fucking dopamine, and that's why people get addicted to that shit, and so they don't say anything. And it could be the reason why I did it when I was a kid. You know, and that could be the reason for the friend zone. You put yourself in the friend zone. People don't seem to realize this, but you do. And my thoughts are, again, unfounded by any science that I've actually researched, that you put yourself in the friend zone because you're getting a dopamine push. It's basically heroin or whatever other drug that pumps dopamine into your system. Because that's your reward drug. That's what you get when you feel the reward, is dopamine. And so there's that constant influx when you think about them and you wonder and you imagine yourself, oh man, what happens if I get into an accident and they come running to my bedside and they're fawning over me and they're like, oh my God, oh my God, I love you, blah, blah. And that right there is addictive. That scenario, I've done a lot. And I'm sure many people have done so. And they know it. Or this person, they're in a shitty relationship and you want to save them from it. You see them hurting and you're like, I'll be your hero. I'll help save you. And the idea of saving them and them rewarding you with their love and affection and attention, it feeds your ego. It makes you feel amazing. And you just savor it. It's delicious and addicting because that's never gonna fucking happen. But the fantasy is more interesting than the reality. I live in a fantasy world, I would know. It's not hard to live in a fantasy world. When you imagine delicious foods and sex with the right partner or circumstances here. I mean, this is why porn is so good. Porn is addicting too. Because dopamine. And then there was also a video that sort of challenges the idea of addiction as well. It's by the guys Kurzgesagt. Also, In a Nutshell is their actual name, because nobody can pronounce their name right. I know I probably screwed it up. Talking about how addiction seems to have more of a social component. That those who are alone are more likely to be addicted than those who have some sort of societal connections. And that seems to be the case, I think. It's a pretty strong point. Having been somebody who is addicted to various things in life, who may in many facts still be addicted to many things in life. We're all selfish. We're all insecure. We're all uncertain about so many things in our lives. Encouragement helps. Discouragement, not so much. There is a difference between negative reinforcement and punishment. Punishment is a negative act with the hopes that that person won't do the thing again and effectively is reused if necessary. So, spanking your child. Now, certain things make sense to use punishment because punishment is an extreme act. If your kid is about to run across the street, pull him aside, swat him in the ass a couple times, make him understand pain is associated with that action. Pain, disapproval, whatnot, but also ensure them that the reason why you're doing it is because you want them safe, not because they're bad. You're not a bad person because you did something that you don't know about. As a child, there's things in the world that you don't know about. As an adult, there are things in the world that you don't know about. I'm sure fucking Betty White doesn't know a ton of shit, even though she's been on the planet for almost 100 years. Spoiler, I guess? I don't fucking... She's older than sliced bread. If that tells you anything. Apparently sliced bread is better than Betty White. I disagree. I think I'm right. I'll look it up later. I don't care. It's very hard to challenge yourself when you have no confidence in yourself. Even if you have some confidence and it's nothing compared to what other people have. To take risks, because that little 6-year-old me, that was a huge risk, asking for something so simple. And it kind of goes back to something that I think I may have mentioned elsewhere. I'm pretty sure I did, in fact. When you're insecure, when you think so little of yourself, the biggest thing that you're willing to do, the biggest risk you're willing to take, may be minimal compared to what the reality of it all is. It feels to you that it's huge, that you're about to suffer immensely for taking the step that you're about to take. That would be like me right now trying to bet $5,000 on a game. That's ridiculous money for me. That's almost all the money I have. But to somebody who makes $100,000 a year, $5,000 isn't that much money. That's all of my money. That's not even 1% of their money. It's 5% of their money. So when you are, if you will, to expand on the analogy, confidently wealthy, if the wealth of your self-esteem and assurance and self-image are immense, then the things that you do on a regular basis are like climbing a goddamn mountain to other people who are insecure. Now, I mean, you shouldn't feel bad because that's what you do. A dude who can run a mile in, what is it, 4 minutes, something like that, the 4-minute mile, he's got a lot on me. I can't even run a fucking mile. Hell, I can barely run now because of medical complications. So there's obviously a wealth disparity in that regard too when it comes to competence, confidence as well. And it takes taking risks to learn how to do that. And I took risks. I lost a friend. Granted, there wasn't a whole lot of conversation, to be honest. So, wasn't much of a friend in that regard. But I lost a friendly acquaintance because of circumstances. Because then I went back and I told her, hey, I'm not sure he's that into you. And then she's like, oh, what did you do? And, she blew up at me. And she didn't let me say anything because what I said, the first thing I said to her, tore everything down that was in her mind. It destroyed the image that she had in her brain, whether it wasn't reality or not. It didn't matter. To her, it was. Her reality was shattered by my words because of whatever. She trusted what I'm saying. And I didn't tell her, hey, he doesn't like you. I'm saying, hey, I'm not sure he likes you, or something along those lines. And I'm like, you should probably find out. She either isn't going to find out because she wasn't, or now she doesn't want to because maybe I came in too fast. I don't know. Ultimately, though, it is what it is. I don't know if it's good or bad. It's just, it is. And I even hate saying that because usually that means, well, I don't give a fuck. But it's like, well, it could be good. But I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be good. It could be bad, but I don't know. So we'll find out if that situation is good or bad. Maybe it'll help her in her little, because she's working with him on the acting skit that we have to do. I think it's a skit, whatever. It's a scene that we're doing in various plays that we all have to do. I gotta read that tomorrow. Shit. I have so much fucking work I gotta do. And that's another thing too. It's like, I don't know how relevant this is to the overall theme, but screw it, I'm just gonna go with it. Yesterday, I was talking to my voice and movement professor. Now, I'm going about it in this stupid sideways fashion that I do because I don't know, again, I don't know how to ask for the things that I want. Because I feel like the things that I want are petty. I feel like I've already automatically given them a judgment by another person. I've already said, okay, this is how you're going to perceive it, so whatever. And that's not fair. That's not fair to me, and it's not fair to them. I should let them have the opportunity to judge it, but the thing is that I'm still pretty insecure. And so I'm already trying to make those outside judgments for me. I think it was also, but it was like asking a parent for something that I wanted. But because I didn't go about it in a direct fashion, it didn't work out. Basically, I was like, look, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to pull this off. I don't know. I am overwhelmed by what I'm doing. She has no sympathy. This is a different instructor entirely, but she's like, look, this is what theater is. You may have to memorize 3 or 4 things, and you'll be memorizing this thing one day and performing the other day, and that's just what actors do. And I'm just like, shit. I mean, I want to be able to do this, and I'm going to take the effort to some degree. I don't know how much effort, because it's very difficult for me to focus on all this. I had, for the longest time, the project that I have open in Google Drive that I've got with a classmate. Now, I'm pretty sure my classmate has some sort of learning disabilities. And I don't dislike that about it. It's just that maybe the learning disabilities affect his social abilities, and I'm trying to surround myself with people who are good at doing this, and he is not good at doing this, generally speaking. But he's not a bad person, so I can't judge him that way. And so, in a way, that's not fair for me. And again, it sounds selfish, and maybe it is, and I even hate sounding selfish, but I'm really enjoying this, and I don't want to fail at what I'm doing. I feel like I'm gonna learn something from all this, and I'm sure I'll learn something from working with him. But I've had the project open on Google Drive for a while, and every time I go to write it, I'm just like, brain just turns off. I can't focus at all. I've got the idea in my head about what we're gonna do, but I know that writing it out is gonna help. I just don't do it for some damn reason. I mean, I'm surprised at what my memory is capable of doing, how I memorize things and how I do things. But I'm still having a hard time figuring out how to fucking make the everyday things rewarding. The things that are hard for me to do. You know, now if I could figure out how to do the exact same thing in a different way to make it rewarding, to where it's memorized, to where it's easy to recall, I would do that. But I'm still working on it. I'm in new territory yet again. I don't know what I'm doing with myself. It's absurd. But at the same time, it's like, I want to do this. And maybe I'm thinking, well, maybe I don't want to do this thing. Maybe I'm trying to compromise because it's the first time I've ever done any of this, and I have thrown myself into the fucking deep end. And I don't want to drown, but I don't know how I can do this. I really don't. I'll do what I can, whatever that is. I'm obviously not very confident when I say that, because I don't know what it is. I just have to keep swimming, I guess. I mean, obviously persistence. Maybe that's all it takes. Maybe it's just the decision to persist. To do what to succeed is to continue doing. And that is a very hard thing for me to do because I've never done it. I need to keep counting down from 10 I might be at like 5 right now, and this is where I usually give up. So maybe if I just keep counting down, maybe it'll work. I guess, like, there's always that saying, you know, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. But I don't even have the luxury to prepare for the worst. I got to prepare for everything. I've got an Avid project that I've got to do. I've got to, I have to teach the class about jump cuts. That won't be too hard, but I've got to do the paperwork. And then have a short verbal presentation, and I'm sure the instructor will ask me questions, and I'll have to make crap up off the top of my head. And then on top of that, I have to do this video edit for this drought stuff that we've got in Avid, and it is horrible. I'm not putting much mental power in this thing. It's horrible to work on. All I'm doing right now, and ultimately, I am just going to, I'll probably end up spending some time next week on it. Maybe. If I get a chance. I'm not really sure. I'll have to figure it out. But I've got to, she wants to be like 10 minutes. I'm not even going to try to be creative. I don't care. I care so little about this project. And it's about the drought, and it's a woman who works at the school that had an interview, and the sound is horrible because there's a fucking chair that's constantly squeaking around. It's like, seriously? You couldn't have recorded this somewhere else, or at least pulled in a damn non-squeaky chair? It's like, how do these kids who are supposed to be recording this stuff, who know and understand audio quality, how are they not doing this right? I don't get it. I mean, sometimes I'm like, I should just stop doing what I'm doing. And then on top of that, it's like, okay, well, duh, count down from 5. I'm having a bit of a crisis when it comes to a class choice that I need to make. And I think I've realized what I need to do. I need to take the class that I need to take, because that class will probably be disappearing in some way, despite the fact that the other class that I really want to take that will help me in a lot of ways, it may not be the best idea to take, even if it's going to disappear after that, because I've heard it's a mime class, and that class, the concept of mime is actually really good when it comes to acting, because it allows you to learn how to control yourself in very precise ways. Mimes may look ridiculous when it comes to like the whole face paint, French guy looking thing, whatever, but miming is actually a very good and it's a very powerful tool to use if you know how to control your body. And that's something that I want to learn. But I'll probably just have to hope that it shows up at some other time, because I don't have a whole lot more time left when it comes to Pell Grants and the like. And I'm gonna have to have a job next year at some point. Especially, I'm gonna need to have a job probably before or about midterms next semester if I want to just be able to continue persisting. It's all very stressful. I am so fucking stressed out right now. It's all in my head, really. If I just get it done, obviously it's fine. You know, I've got this short poem that I need to memorize by Langston Hughes, and I've got to do the project with my classmate with combat. I mean, it's cool that we get to do it. We have to basically pretend to beat the shit out of each other. But it takes him a long time to get this stuff down. We were two of us, one of my other classmates and I, because we were supposed to pair off for this Langston Hughes thing. And there's a line, the way that the instructor wants us, she wants us to have an upward inflection, to have the proper stress on a certain word within the poem. And he kept putting the wrong emphasis on the exact word she said not to put the emphasis on. And so he would do it right, and then when he would try it again, he'd fail it. And like, no, you gotta keep going. And so I was like, okay, make it flat, make the whole sentence flat, and only put emphasis on that last word, and that's it. And so he kind of sort of did. And I was like, okay, try it again. I'm trying to be encouraging because, it's like, I know what it's like to not get help from people. And so I've had to figure shit out. Life, I'm kind of good at life in a lot of ways. Because I didn't have a lot of people explaining it to me. I didn't have people helping me. I've had to kind of just break it all down myself. Not to say that I'm successful at it, in the sense that I can just kind of skate along in life without any problems. Obviously I wouldn't be fucking talking about what I'm talking about right now. But, like when it comes to talking and comes to speaking and, hell, I always like to tell people a story about South Korean friend of mine. She still has a difficult time speaking English. And for the longest time, she had a hard time pronouncing the word bitch correctly. She would always pronounce it beach. And so she'd be like, what's up, beach? Which was adorable. But I'm like, she wanted to learn how to pronounce the word right. I was like, well, can you say the word itch? She's like, well, itch. It's like, okay, that's interesting. So somehow the word I becomes E, or the sound, the phonetic. Now, at the time, I didn't know anything about phonetics, and I still don't know a whole lot, so I'm not going to try to, really dive into it to try to help somebody pronounce a word, especially if they don't understand it. So, you have to be able to communicate on the same level. So I was like, okay, well, just say itch, then say bitch. Or something like, I don't remember exactly how I did it, but after I think I may have spent a couple hours with her total over several quote-unquote sessions, I finally was able to get her to say, hey, let's go to the beach, bitches. And it was awesome. It was hilarious when she said it because it has all this spunk to it. But, going back to my classmate, it's like, that's how I break it down. Like when I'm in my we were doing table reads last week for rehearsals for Romeo and Juliet. One of the things I said was, if you're having a hard time with a word, break it down phonetically. Write out on the side how you would say it. If the word E-R-E, it's not ear, it's air. So write out the word air. I had to write down a couple words. Benedicite? What the fuck word is that? Stupid Latin or Italian, whatever. No offense to the Italians or your language. I'm just frustrated, that's all. But I just wrote it out as phonetic as possible. It looks ridiculous. I have it somewhere, but I don't want to dig it out. And, there's a moment, and I think I may have mentioned it, where I was like, I kept saying the word fears because of the way that it's written on the page. I'm going to have to rewrite all this shit anyway. But because I kept saying fears, it was the first day, too. The entire cast, director, everybody, they were all like, tears! I was like, okay, and so I just wrote out in big-ass fucking letters, tears, with a couple exclamation points. I was like, I'm going to remember that. And I've remembered it since. And I've been working with my director when it comes to doing this. And that's where I feel confident, I guess, is understanding language. How I'm not the best speaker, although there are people out there who tell me, man, I love your voice. It's got a good quality or good cadence or whatever. You've got good, what is it? You've got good resonance. Whatever. This is my normal speaking voice. I think it's okay, but I think that's the case with most people. I know I have a slight lisp with my sibilants. I don't know if that sounds amazing or not. Putting too much emphasis on the wrong syllables. I'm sorry, I'm just having fun at this point. It's like I need to be able to have fun. And I'm just letting the podcast roll because at this point I don't want to just stop for the sake of stopping for some sort of dramatic effect like I usually do. And also at the same time, seems like longer podcasts are more popular. I don't know. We'll see. I'm still testing the waters with this. It's like I haven't even done 30 yet. I don't even really call it a podcast because I call it a podcast. It's not really a podcast because there's no formula. It's just me talking about shit. Sometimes it has a point, usually. sometimes just me talking about whatever BS comes to mind. And somehow, in a way, it reminds me of the gospel when I was a Catholic. I don't even know if I really was ever a Catholic, technically. I call myself a recovering Catholic. Usually gets a joke or a laugh out of that. But I went to church, and during the Mass, there was a gospel. And the gospel was always a story that the priest told that, as far as I'm aware, was always somewhat personal. And these guys are pretty old, so they got a lot of shit going on in their life. So they've had a lot of experiences with people in general. And if you're able to take the premise, the thesis of today's gospel, I think it was the homily is what it was called. The gospel was whatever we were supposed to be learning about, and the homily was his personal story that was associated with the gospel. And because the gospel was recycled every time, it's like I don't know, maybe every couple of months or something like that, you got a similar story, but it was usually from a different priest or what have you. But the point made sense. I mean, that was actually the part of the Mass that I liked. Like, that was the only thing about Mass that I liked, was listening to the preacher tell a story, because it made sense. It was relatable. Everything else is boring as fuck. And it was a story that was supposed to help establish and promote whatever the gospel was. It was like the prodigal son coming back, blah. And they were always interesting stories, and I think that's the best way to really learn. Well, maybe not the best way, but it helps. And stories have been part of mankind. I mean, that's really what the Bible is, just a book of stories. Very weirdly worded stories, just like Shakespeare. And, Shakespeare even has a bit of a moral at the end of it as well. And it's all very beautiful in its own way. Stories are beautiful. I mean, I love stories. That's why I watch movies. Movies are easier to digest. I can enjoy them. I can think about them. I can ponder on them. Television shows, same thing. Maybe I've distracted myself from the whole point. But that's kind of the whole point anyway, isn't it? To be distracted. I'm talking to myself now for over 40 minutes. And I'm meandering, as I said the last time. Let's not make that too much of a meme within my own world. At this point, I think I've gone too meta. Maybe you could listen to me talk. I mean, I had a friend. Okay, let's keep going. Fuck it. A classmate yesterday and I were talking about Robin Williams. I was mostly talking about him. I was talking about how I watched the documentary that they made after he committed suicide, and how a lot of the similarities that he had, or a lot of the things that he experienced when he was a kid, were similar to what I had. And I came out of it thinking, I was yet again sad that he was no longer here, because he's a huge influence on me. I loved him as the genie. I didn't watch a whole lot of his live films when I was younger, and I haven't seen all of them yet, but he does such a good job doing what he does. And learning about his struggles and how he went there. I mean, you don't get the details, obviously. You get the truncated, prettied up version, because that's how we understand life. The stories are relatable, but you're not going to listen to a day-by-day diary unless you're listening to me right now, which, okay, you're crazy, just like me, cool. But I came out of it, not only the conversation, but out of the movie, realizing, obviously, we can't replace Robin Williams. Nobody can, because we can't replace anybody. We are all individually unique, but we may or may not have the same level of influence that he had. He was able to reach the world. And we all want that ability, because we all want to feel that. We all want to know that we can influence other people that way, because then it validates us even more so. When I found out, how much of an extrovert he was, and, how he would be alone and he would just like fester. And I was like, well, that sounds fucking familiar. And it would just get sad, because if things were weird, like when he, I think it was his co-star, the woman who played Mindy, I can't remember her name. she was saying that they had episodes where they didn't have a live audience, and that totally threw him off. He was even like despondent at times because that was how he could be fed that way. And that was the thing for me. It was like, I actually feel better when I have more people who could feed me that energy. I mean, I know that's why I'm an extrovert. But even when I was standing on stage, like it was after class a couple weeks ago. We were still working on our monologues for the midterm. And on that specific day, we had a little exercise. We were supposed to speed read through the monologue. And at that point, I pretty much knew it by memory. I was still trying to let it sink in, and I still screwed up a little bit on it. And that's one of the things, kind of go back to what I was saying earlier. It's like, I have fucked up on every single performance I've done. All of them. Now, I'm obviously can't be perfect, because I'm not. I'm not perfect at all. And this is the first time I've done it. So, I mean, maybe I should give myself some leeway, I guess. I don't know. But I don't want to end up with like a bunch of B's in doing this and then get discouraged from it. I want to get A's. I want to do well in this performance, in this production. And, I want to stop being so fucking tired at the end of the day, too. Jesus Christ, I was so tired yesterday. But that's also because I'm coming off of some sick, so whatever. But kind of, backtracking a little bit. See if I can backtrack all the way. We were standing up on stage, and I was getting ready to do my monologue, and like our instructor, she's like, "Oh, don't mind me." I was like, "Well, I kind of wish there was more people here, or if you weren't moving around or whatever, because it helps me focus. And I like if I have more people, it's easier because I get to feel the sort of energy from the audience." She's just like, "Oh, honey, you are such an actor." I mean, that really surprised me, but at the same time, not a lot, because, yeah, I mean, it would make sense that an actor would feel the audience, because, I mean, I am that kind of person who feels energized by the people. Like, when we had our first table read, I had half the damn table laughing, and it was so fun, because it made the whole experience worthwhile to me. I mean, I couldn't really do it too much because, I mean, it's too distracting and we couldn't really get what we needed. So I tried not to step on too many toes. So I got to find a middle ground somewhere. I don't know. We'll figure something out, I guess. So after that little interaction, so to kind of go back a little further to the whole Robin Williams thing, obviously I feel like what I'm kind of getting at with this whole Robin Williams thing and the feedback, I feel myself obviously relatable to the man. And, in some ways, even with the whole depression thing, hopefully I don't end up committing suicide because of things like Parkinson's, but who knows? I don't know how the future's going to go. Here's the crazy thing, though. I remember when I was younger, and I thought that I was going to be dead before I was 30, that I was going to commit suicide somehow. And I remember also saying that I felt so strongly about his presence that I didn't want to live in a world without him. I still remember myself sort of telling myself this. The details don't matter. It's the idea that I came up with. And obviously the way that I feel about it has changed because, he's dead. I'm still alive. I am saddened by the fact that he doesn't exist, that we're not going to have new things coming from him anymore. But he's also given us quite a bit to work on. And, he's definitely an inspiration for various things. I mean, not the only one, of course, for me. But, Jim Carrey, Dave Coulier, Robin Williams, of course. And various other comedians and comic geniuses in their own right. But I realized at the end of that little conversation, at the end of that movie, that there's no way I can replace him because we can't replace anybody because we're all unique, like I said. But what I will attempt to do is be my version of Robin Williams. Whatever it is that I feel me is, part of that is becoming a child again. This is something that is sadly a thing that happens with a lot of people, that we don't have that childlike wonder, that we don't feel like we can be that kind of spontaneous and that kind of emotional and that kind of gregarious. I mean, sure, we've got responsibilities we have to take care of, but not being you is like the worst thing you can do to you. And ultimately, I know the whole like be yourself thing is cliched as fuck, because it basically just means, well, I don't know who you are, so I'm just gonna say the thing that I think would work. And in a way, it's still kind of what the message is here, but I'm trying to hopefully dig a little deeper in that. Maybe you can understand why I'm thinking this way. We can be whoever we want to be. With limitations, of course. We all have some kind of limitation, but the person we should be, at the very least, is the responsible person that takes care of ourselves, so that we can continue to thrive and live and grow as a person. But personality-wise, we are still children. We all have that awe and wonder and that creativity that we had as a kid that was in so many ways pushed down, shoved aside, and discouraged by parents and teachers and whomever, administrators and employers and the like. And I'm not saying that everybody is going to be able to just be magically fucking happy. It's not about that at all. It's about taking the time to learn who you are. Take those tiny little risks, the bigger ones too. Grow as a person from those things. Begin to understand that we are in many ways scared of the wrong things, and that it's probably going to work out a lot better than we think it is. Maybe I'm just preaching to myself to make myself feel better. Sometimes that's how it all works. Sometimes you need somebody else to help push you into that. Maybe that's me, cool. If I help you, awesome. I feel better about what I'm doing, even if it's only one person. Granted, I'll be honest, if it was like 1,000 people or 4,000 people or 1 million, that'd be even better. But I'll tell you this. I got a video on YouTube right now. It's almost 20,000 views. It's been up for like 5 years. And there are people on there who are thanking me for making that video. And maybe a year-old comment or something like that. And I may not see it immediately, but when I do see it, it makes me feel better. And it makes me want to keep that video up. It makes me still remember some of those things I said and how I've changed as a person. And those little things are really what matters. Because, as they say, and it's not what people say that you remember. It's how they make you feel. So hopefully, whoever it is I become in the future, once I have self-actualized or just simply grown, I anticipate as long as I don't suffer dementia, I will continue to grow as a person, mentally, physically, maybe. We'll see about that. But I will try to improve who I am, to better not only myself, but the people around me. That's really all I can hope for. Take on new experiences, meet new people, fall out of love, hurt myself, hurt others, try to mend wounds, overcome the pain and suffering I feel and cause. That's what humanity is. That's what we experience. And I guess ultimately, what it really boils down to, just keep counting down from 10 and make sure you get it past 5. Get all the way to 1 and then do it again.